The new Lord of the Rings movie is out, The War of the Rohirrim. This one's a little different because it's done in a style of an anime. So, Tyler, with everything that's been happening with Lord of the Rings recently, I think my genuine reaction to the new ones is, my boy, look how they massacred my boy. So, got a lot to say about this one, so I hope it'll be enlightening for fellow right-wingers. But before I rant, Tyler, please set the stage for us.
Well, yeah, I know you're passionate about this. You know, you and I are both big Lord of the Rings fans. So let's talk a little bit about this newest installment. It's called The War of the Rohirrim. It's an animated movie produced by Warner Brothers Animation with a sort of anime aesthetic, like you said. The film is a prequel that expands on a brief portion of the appendix of the books. Where have we heard that before with the Rings of Power? It's already a little bit of a red flag. So the War of the Rohirrim follows a woman named Hera, a warrior princess who goes against the wishes of her father to fight against a rival tribe, which is led by a childhood friend who wants to wed her. So, Ben, Lord of the Rings is kind of a conservative mainstay in so many ways. What do we think? Should conservatives go out to see this installment as well, or are they gonna kind of be disappointed by the themes, by the messages, even by the content?
So there is some of that, but first off, Tyler, I got bored. Like, I think it really really lacks a little bit of narrative thrust. Honestly, the animation is kind of sloppy. The characters are decent, but the environments are kind of like PlayStation 3 level 3D graphics, and it's intermixed with 2D animation. And then every now and again, you'll get these like occasional bafflingly photorealistic elements that it doesn't quite fit together. Also, like, it has the type of writing where I think you'll know what I'm talking about. A character will see like a friend in danger and they'll just whisper, "No." And this will just happen like over and over to an appalling amount. But like, the problems go even deeper than that. The protagonist is kind of a Mary Sue who doesn't learn. She doesn't sacrifice. She has no heroic death and rebirth. She has no dark night of the soul. Basically, it's a bad story. And not only that, but it's kind of a progressive story. And it's really aping the aesthetics of medieval myth without any of the substance.
Well, Ben, I mean, do you think that this is kind of the relatively new adage of, put a chick in it and make it gay?
Yes, it's a little bit more subtle than that here, but I think if you look under the surface, you will see that it's a progressive narrative. So, kind of set the stage here. Progressive narratives basically work under the assumption that humanity keeps progressing and getting better and better over time. And in this paradigm, the old structures and ways of doing things are a barrier to this and kind of hold progress back. And conservative narratives tend to be a little bit more cyclical, and they kind of see the world as going through cycles that repeat themselves. And in this model, the older structures and tradition are a good way of maintaining order and passing on valuable truths. But in Rise of the Rohirrim, the old structure is represented by the King of Rohan, the heroine's father. And naturally, he wants to protect his daughter and doesn't want her to fight like the men, which seems like a natural instinct. But she pushes against this and fights anyway.
Yeah, that sort of makes sense. But a warrior princess archetype isn't new to the Lord of the Rings, right? Like, you've got characters like Éowyn in the original stories who rebelled against her father in order to fight. She even sort of, has that line of like, "I am no man," and stabs him. And I think, if that wasn't in the original books, and I think if it had happened today, we probably would have been talking about it. But how is this story kind of different from how, the books and how the original films kind of handled that?
Well, again, they look very similar on the surface, but it's the subtleties that reveal the foundational differences. So I'm glad you brought up Éowyn. Éowyn in the story wants to fight for the sake of her home and her loved ones. And again, her defining statement is, "I am no man." But if you think about what that means, she's really saying, "I am a woman." But on the other hand, Hera's defining statement, which he says multiple times, is, I don't need a man. And that subtle difference, I think, makes all the difference. The villain is a childhood friend of hers who is basically a pathetic, backstabbing simp who wants to marry her. And she refuses him throughout the story, along with the prospect of any marriage, in order to maintain her independence. And in the original, Eowyn's story is written with parallels to women from the Bible. She rides into battle with the hobbit Merry on her horse, basically like he's her son. And all this kind of evokes the Blessed Virgin Mary. She's kind of going to battle with her son in kind of a motherly way. And so, it's all conservative in framework. And in Return of the King, Eowyn later gets married and becomes a mother. And because of this, her journey from girl to warrior to mother could be interpreted psychologically as a girl learning to incorporate the masculine side of her psyche in order to become a more mature woman. But on the other hand, Hera in the animated film is literally just on a mission to maintain true to her inner self and kind of, express herself and exert who she is internally. And she basically has no character arc. And in fact, basically the arc of the whole story is all the other characters in the story kind of coming around to acknowledge what an inherent girl boss she is. And her father's ostensibly heroic moment is when he admits that he was wrong to protect her. And he literally says, I failed you. I was blind. You are strong. And so because of this, it kind of portrays the father's natural instinct to protect his daughter as an oppressive instinct. And, it's a little easy to overlook if you're not paying attention, because she has the kind of Studio Ghibli, kind of like nice anime girl personality. Like, she's not an obnoxious character. But if you pay attention to what she says and does, Hera's character progression is kind of self-serving. And it could be summarized as gaining the recognition she inherently deserves.
Yeah, well, it definitely doesn't sound like kind of these very like salt of the earth or maybe even like large spiritual kind of themes that Tolkien had at the core of his books. These battles between good and evil and embracing, a moral code more than anything. Ben, what do you say? Should conservatives sit this one out, or is this worth seeing?
Yeah, so again, Hera's core value in the story, which she says multiple times, is that she chooses how the story ends. And I agree with what you said. This is kind of a far cry from Frodo's story, where he submits to the greater good in spite of his own desires. So really, this is a progressive story that uses Tolkien as a mask. So sadly, Rohan must wait to fight another day, because War of the Rohirrim gets a no from me.
Thank you so much for watching that short. If you enjoyed it, there's a link down below to the full-length video, the new Right broadcast. Go check it out. Go subscribe. Thanks for watching.